Hello, America! JOC here with your Ranting Politics headline updates, where we are diving into today's most explosive political stories that matter. Coming up, we're diving into 3 huge developments you need to know about. First, a TikTok sale deal that was apparently in the bag before Trump's tariff bombshell threw everything into chaos. Then, we'll unpack the Senate Republicans' late-night budget marathon that just passed Trump's fiscal framework after a grueling vote-a-rama. And finally, Russia calling Trump's Iran bombing threats illegal and unacceptable. Diplomatic speak for pump the brakes. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome to America's fastest-growing daily news rundown, designed specifically for your commute, run, or coffee time. Stick around for all this and more in your daily dose of unfiltered news and common-sense commentary. This is Ranting Politics Headline Updates. Well, folks, talk about a plot twist in the TikTok saga. According to reporting from the New York Post, President Trump's plan to secure a U.S. buyer for the Chinese-owned social media giant was actually finalized earlier this week, right before his sweeping tariff announcement blew the whole deal to smithereens. By Wednesday, White House officials had supposedly worked out all the details for Trump to sign an executive order that would authorize the sale of TikTok from ByteDance to a company majority owned by American investors. This would have kicked Beijing down to a minority ownership position, satisfying the legislation passed under Biden that forced the qualified divestment. The deal would have also extended Saturday's sale deadline by 4 months to sort out financing and paperwork. Pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. Enter Trump's decision to drop the tariff hammer, slapping an additional 34% duties on Chinese goods. ByteDance representatives apparently called the whole thing off faster than you can scroll through your For You page. They're now refusing to budge until China and the U.S. hold broader talks about future trade relations. And get this, the potential buyer pool was fascinating. Vice President J.D. Vance had reportedly been leading these discussions for months, courting heavy hitters like Oracle and Amazon. But wait, there's more. The founder of OnlyFans, yes, that OnlyFans, Tim Stokely apparently made a late-stage independent offer to acquire TikTok. Can you imagine that corporate transition meeting? There was even a Wyoming media entrepreneur named Reed Rasner who put in a $50 million offer that Trump boosted on Truth Social. Talk about a long shot. Let's not forget why this matters. Around 170 million Americans use TikTok, which has raised serious national security concerns about data sharing with its Chinese parent company. Trump has suggested that shares could be held by a planned U.S. sovereign wealth fund. ByteDance confirmed Friday they've been in discussions with the U.S. government but said an agreement has not been executed and that key matters remain unresolved. Any agreement would also need approval under Chinese law. Trump bought everyone some time, though, announcing a 75-day extension beyond Saturday's deadline, writing on Truth Social that the deal requires more work. He added, rather pointedly, this proves that tariffs are the most powerful economic tool. Classic Trump move, using tariffs as leverage in negotiations across multiple fronts. In a marathon vote session that stretched into the wee hours of Saturday morning, Senate Republicans managed to push through a framework for President Trump's ambitious budget agenda. The measure passed mostly along party lines in a 51-48 vote around 2:30 a.m., with only 2 Republicans, Susan Collins of Maine and Rand Paul of Kentucky, joining Democrats in opposition. So what exactly does this budget blueprint contain? Well, it's essentially a Republican wish list that would raise the debt ceiling by up to $5 trillion through the reconciliation process, which conveniently removes future leverage from Senate Democrats. And perhaps most significantly, it aims to make Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent. Now here's where things get interesting, and a bit controversial. The framework uses what's called a current policy baseline scoring method, chosen by Budget Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. In plain English, this accounting trick essentially scores the cost of extending Trump's tax cuts at $0 because it's continuing current policy rather than counting it as new money being added to the federal deficit. Even some Republicans are raising eyebrows at this approach. Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana openly acknowledged on the Senate floor that he has concerns, saying, I am not saying that I think it is better that we use current policy as baseline. It's never been done before in a setting like this. I think it establishes a dangerous precedent. Some House conservatives have gone even further, dismissing it outright as a gimmick. But Senate GOP leadership is closing ranks, with Majority Leader John Thune calling the resolution the first step toward a final bill to make permanent the tax relief we implemented in 2017. The budget reconciliation process is critical here because it lowers the vote threshold in the Senate from 60 to 51, allowing Republicans to approve certain priorities without a single Democrat vote. With a Republican trifecta in Washington, this tool is seen as essential for delivering on Trump's agenda. During the 6-hour vote arama, Democrats introduced amendments aimed at raising the minimum wage, limiting Trump's tariffs, and blocking potential Medicaid cuts, all of which were rejected by the Republican majority. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer lamented afterward that, "Tonight, Senate Democrats gave Senate Republicans the chance to hit the kill switch on Donald Trump's tariffs on DOGE, on the attacks against Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and at each opportunity, Republicans refused." Trump himself expressed enthusiastic support for the Senate framework earlier this week, declaring at an unrelated event, "If we get this done, it'll be the most incredible bill ever passed in the history of our Congress." Because of course he did. Now the question remains whether House conservatives will accept the Senate plan, despite its similarities to their own framework passed last month. As the New York Post reports, the House Budget Committee's Republican majority fired a warning shot right before the Senate vote, posting online, "Cutting taxes without cutting spending doesn't reduce taxes. It merely shifts the tax burden to our children." Well, it looks like the tension between the Trump administration and Iran is heating up, and now Russia is jumping into the fray. Moscow is pushing back hard against President Trump's recent threats to bomb Iran, with Russian officials labeling such actions illegal and unacceptable. President Trump has been ramping up his rhetoric against Iran in recent days, warning of potential direct conflict if Tehran doesn't stop arming the Houthi terrorist group or halt its nuclear program. But Russia is making it clear they don't appreciate this kind of saber-rattling. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova didn't mince words, stating that threats from outside to bomb Iran's nuclear infrastructure facilities will inevitably lead to an irreversible global catastrophe. She emphasized that Russia remains committed to finding solutions to Iran's nuclear program that respect its right to peaceful nuclear energy. But there's more to this story than just diplomatic posturing. According to Rebecca Koffler, a former DIA intelligence officer specializing in Russia's warfighting strategy, Russia and Iran are not natural allies. They share a very turbulent history, and there's plenty of distrust in the relationship. She notes that Russians are actually wary of Iran developing a fully operational militarized nuclear capability, but would never admit it publicly. Koffler suggests that Putin is angling to serve as a broker between the Trump administration and the Iranian government on the nuclear issue. This isn't the first time Russia has played both sides. During the Obama administration, Moscow sided with Washington on economic sanctions against Iran, and even complied with requests not to sell S-300 air defense missiles to Tehran. Meanwhile, Trump's attempts to restart talks with Iran through a letter to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei were flatly rejected last Sunday. In typical Trump fashion, he told NBC, "If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing," though he did float the possibility of secondary tariffs as an alternative. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian responded that Iran doesn't avoid talks, but that breach of promises has been the issue. "They must prove that they can build trust," he added. "The stakes couldn't be higher. Iran is currently enriching uranium to 60%, just shy of the 90% weapons-grade level, with experts warning they could have a nuclear weapon within weeks if they take the final steps." According to a UN Atomic Agency report from late March, Iran's regime has already enriched enough uranium to manufacture 6 nuclear weapons. Well, folks, that's our news rundown for today, and what a news cycle it's been. Let's recap what we've covered. President Trump had a TikTok sale deal all but finalized before his tariff announcement threw a wrench in the works. ByteDance backed out, and now we're in a 75-day extension period while everyone tries to figure out what happens next with those 170 million American users. Meanwhile, Senate Republicans pushed through their budget framework at 2:30 in the morning, setting the stage for making Trump's tax cuts permanent and raising the debt ceiling by a cool $5 trillion. And all this while Russia is calling Trump's threats to bomb Iran illegal and unacceptable, setting up a complex diplomatic chess match between Washington, Moscow, and Tehran. The common thread? President Trump is making big moves on multiple fronts simultaneously. Trade, budget, foreign policy, creating both opportunities and complications that will shape American politics for years to come. That's all for today's episode of Ranting Politics Headline Updates. Follow us on X at RantingRP, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to visit our website at rantingpolitics.com, where we cut through the noise to deliver the unfiltered truth without partisan spin. Remember, we don't align with a political party, we align with you, the American citizen. This is JOC signing off, and thank you, our loyal listeners, for choosing Ranting Politics Headline Updates. We'll be back soon with the updates you need to navigate these interesting times. Until then, stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay free.